So I'm gonna need y'all to stop listening to what these fake gamers spreading negativity are saying, because unlike them, I actually played Assassin's Creed Shadows, and I have the gameplay to prove it. Let's take a look. Now, before we dive in, I do want to emphasize that this is not a full-fledged game review. I only played several hours of a work-in-progress build of this, and so these aren't my final thoughts on Assassin's Creed Shadows, but rather my first impressions of the demo I played. There are many things that stood out during the time I got with this, a few rough edges, which I'll touch on, but surprisingly, I believe Ubisoft Quebec might actually exceed many people's expectations. This game is looking very good. So my demo was split into two sections. They started us at the very beginning with the prologue, which introduced the characters Yasuke and Yaoi, giving us a slice of their origin stories. Of course, Ubisoft declared that for spoiler reasons, I don't go into the contents of the game's intro, but just know that Assassin's Creed fans and new players alike will find reasons to be invested. Heed those words. This game's opening act does a great job setting the stage. They let me start recording gameplay once I completed the first section, and they loaded me into a new save that started me further in the game, allowing me to explore the open world with all gold and purple tier armor and gear, which is where I learned that there are armor and gear classes back in Assassin's Creed. I didn't find out how many there are, but I did come across a few of the lower tiered sets just exploring the open world. I think a lot of people will see this and assume there's a looter aspect to the game, and to clarify, this is not a loot system. I didn't feel encouraged to ransack every room in the game. However, the color coding of the gear you may stumble upon will be familiar to any action RPG player. Of course, both characters have their own armor as well as their own weapons, and that brings me to the next point I want to make about this game. Because it takes place in feudal Japan, let's not beat around the bush, this will get compared to Ghost of Tsushima a lot. And while there are similarities due to the shared setting, it's worth noting Ghost takes place in 1274, while the story of AC Shadows starts about 3 centuries after that. So there's a noticeable difference between the time periods. This game's world didn't feel as desolate, and I think the vibes of this game are distinctive enough for it to hold up on its own. And from a gameplay standpoint, the gap in likeness between these games widens even more. One big way Shadows sets itself apart is with the weapon variety. As opposed to being a multi-stance blade master, both Yasuke and Yaoi can wield a variety of different samurai weapons, each of which have their own skill trees and a surprising amount of depth. For instance, I realized that though the tried and true long katana was a fun weapon to play with for Yasuke, the naginata was a far more effective weapon for dealing with crowds of enemies I faced in the missions I played in the demo. The same goes for Yaoi and her kusari gama. It seems the devs really want to encourage players to master more than one weapon. I'm very interested in getting more time with some of these weapons because they for sure have a learning curve, especially weapons like the teppo, which I found funny they gave Yasuke a gun. But also there's my favorite, the kanabo, which I feel like the weapon really embodies and conveys Yasuke's massiveness and power during combat. On that point, I did like how the characters' two playstyles were very different, with Naoe playing more like a traditional assassin, but with much more speed, more gadgets, more stealth capabilities, and just generally more stylish traversal. She can hold her own in hand-to-hand combat, but for the most part, she gets overwhelmed by bigger enemies or large mobs, so it's best to stick to the shadows with her. And the stealth didn't feel as generic or simple as it did in Mirage. The guards weren't following specific patterns, they were very reactive, will spot you easily, and I was forced to get very creative with how I went about going through areas, some of which had too many enemies to stealth kill. I like that the game made me assess these stealth situations more carefully. That's been missing from this series for a long time. Meanwhile, Yasuke, being a more grounded character, for a lot of people will be a more fun and upfront character, and he's for sure a welcome change of pace. Not to say it's easy mode playing as him, I had to get better with parry timing and learning how to move with him. But he's such a tank, he runs through walls, punts enemies across the map, and is just overall a damn savage. I was able to switch between the characters pretty much any time, though there was a mission that had 3 sections and it made me choose who to play as between each cutscene. But other than that, all it took was going to my inventory screen and pressing a button to rotate the playable protagonist. Now, this may be a nitpick, but it's not like Spider-Man 2 or GTA 5 where the characters are separate. It just rotates them to your static position. I feel like it would have been cool to see the character become an AI and roam when I stopped controlling them, especially since Yasuke and Yaoi were always together in the cutscenes. But from what I played, only one of them is actually on the map at a time. I know, petty first world grievance, but something that for me was quite noticeable. Oh, there's also a short load screen when you switch characters too. I know this is something that folks are spoiled on now thanks to the seamless Peter to Miles transitions from Spider-Man 2, but I did have to walk around in the Animus for a tad if I wanted to swap out, which I'm not gonna lie, was a slight bummer, because the game really encourages you to alternate between the two characters, mainly for strategic reasons. For instance, Yasuke's climbing skills are very minimal. The man can't even properly complete a leap of faith and will wipe away the haystack if you fast travel to a vantage point with him.
No one saw that.
So if I wasn't trying to squabble my way through certain areas, Noway was the clear choice, but I had to sit through a little load screen to do it. That said, I can envision folks locking either of the characters and playing through the entire game with just them because, again, they both have a lot of depth gameplay-wise. As per usual, Ubisoft's level of detail and environment design is world-class. The section of the game I play is looking gorgeous, and not just off the visuals alone. It has a weather system, a night and day cycle, there are season changes, a lot of endemic life, civilians. The open world felt very alive. I'm looking forward to exploring more and going outside the lines of the designated quest, because the little bit I did stray off course, I found cool little things like being able to draw pictures of animals or chasing naked bumps through the streets. I can only imagine the amount of fun side quests the full game will have. Now, I wasn't able to capture footage for this, but I did want to mention it because it's interesting. This game will have a feature that allows you to construct and customize a hideout. Like, you can actually build a base and recruit NPCs from out in the open world and use them to help you with scouting and assist you in fights. They didn't really go into detail about what or how robust this feature is, but it does exist, and I think if properly executed, it could be something that adds some calm to the game where you will be spreading a lot of violence. There also is a wanted system in this game, in case anybody was curious. That has not changed, so if you're wanted, walking around in densely populated villages can be dangerous. And a very cool extension to that is your wanted level will clear upon the in-game season changing. I didn't get to actually experience, but I thought that was cool when the demoist pointed it out. Overall, I really enjoyed my time demoing this game. I went into this with pretty moderate expectations and came out pleasantly surprised. Assassin's Creed Shadows pulls no punches and is fully embracing the characters, the world, and the gameplay without compromise. It doesn't feel like the same generic sandbox or cluster of ideas we've been seeing from this publisher as of late. Clearly, Ubisoft pushing this game back multiple times is what it needed, and I'm confident after the little sliver I played that folks are going to be happy with this game. Despite all the controversy and dog shit discourse, dare I say the gameplay may truly have the last word. But that's all contingent on Quebec Studios maintaining the level of excitement and polish that I experienced throughout the entire game, and we'll see if they're able to do that when this drops on March 20th. If you made it to the end of this video, thank you guys so much for watching, and as always, if you have any questions or thoughts about my demo session, leave them in the comments. If this video was helpful to you guys, please like, share, subscribe to my channel for more pre-release coverage, and I will see you guys on the next video. Peace.